Hello again. Today I'm going to be talking about the Cantini violin. You've seen it before in a couple of other videos, mainly the one I was talking about MIDI and stuff. If you want to see that, that's up there somewhere. Might be up there. I never did understand these things. So today I'm going to talk about the Cantini violin itself, along with the SY-1000 and what it's good for, and the good points, bad points, what works, what doesn't. So let's get on. So let's start off first. So the Cantini violin there is a solid body electric violin. It's made in Italy. It has a magnetic pickup in the bridge rather than the usual piezo, which is interesting. And it's also got a big DIN output there, which goes into your GR equipped gear such as the GR55 or the SY-1000. I have the SY-1000 here, so I'll be talking mainly about that. It does behave slightly differently with the GR55, so if you're thinking of that, maybe look up some other videos. So generally, I think the Cantini is a nice instrument. It feels nice in the hand, it's got a good weight, it's not too heavy even though it's a solid body. Tuning pegs seem good quality, it comes nicely balanced. It still takes 9-volt battery even though it's a magnetic pickup. I presume that's to do with just getting the right amount of power output from it. Because it's a magnetic pickup, you need steel core strings on it. You can't use your normal gut core or nylon core strings. I was slightly worried about this when I first got it. I thought, has it got memories of student violins when you were young and given a really terrible thing that sounded awful? But actually the strings on this, they're quite nice, and the pickup has quite a nice little soft sound, a little bit less harsh than a lot of pizzos. It's not bad at all, to be honest. So the construction seems nice. If you look at the width of the bridge there, it looks like it's a really thick bridge, but actually the bit that the strings are resting on is just on this side here, and the rest of the bridge here has the magnetic pickup. So I don't know if you can see that or not. There's quite a bit of give at this side, and that side is where the string contacts the bridge. So it's got a normal jack output as well if you want to use it just straight. It's got a volume control. I'm not a big fan of volume controls on violins, but they tend to get knocked and I never ever use them for anything. So for me, they just get in the way. I was quite pleased that the Vector didn't have one at all because it just stops cluttering it up. But this one does, so if you like violin with volume controls, it's got a volume control. So the magnetic pickup, I say, it sounds quite nice. It's quite a soft sound, more reminiscent of the bridge than something like the Vector. So it's a nice sound. I think it's very useful sound. Just a little less edgy than a piezo. I know a lot of people have problems with piezo pickups because of that edge on them. So if you don't like pizzos, this is a really good solution. So it comes with a 8-pin DIN lead that goes to the 13-pin DIN on the GR equipment. I don't know why it's an 8-pin DIN. It's the same size physically as a 13-pin DIN. It might be to do with the internals of the socket, probably. So it does mean if you need another lead, about the only place you can get them from is Cantini themselves, which is slightly annoying because the pinouts are not clear, and I don't think anybody else makes them. They're not that expensive, but yeah, I don't like having a single supplier for leads. It bothers me a bit. There's a nice locking nut on here that holds it in place very securely, which is great when you're playing. Oddly, down the other end, the DIN just plugs in. There's not even a little clip you get on the Roland GK leads, which is slightly odd, but seems to be okay. Hopefully you're not going to be kicking the pedal around too much, I suppose. So that's the instrument. Yeah, it feels good. I do actually really like it. I was very impressed for the money. It seemed good value. So, when you plug it into an SY-1000, what do you get? Well, you get a few things. There You get a few extra bits on the Dynasynth, which I showed earlier in a video where I just showed you how to use the SY-1000 without the GR pickup. So there are a couple of extra options on there. There's an oscillator synth, which is not very good with a violin. There's the poly effects, there's the GR300 effects, which are quite nice. The Vios, which I really like, I'll show you those. And there's some guitar emulations, which are surprisingly useful. So we'll go through those bit by bit, and I'll show you what they do, what they sound like, and a little bit of a demo at the end. So let's go down here on the Dynasynth. I've got my Dynasynth here. So the Dynasynth has the same things you get with the other Dynasynth things, but you get a couple of extra things. You get a feedback oscillator, which is basically a sawtooth with extra feedback and harmonics added. And you get some quite interesting effects with this. So if we, the basic sound is. So quite nice on itself, yeah, nothing wrong with that. But then you can add feedback to that. Which adds all sorts of harmonics and extra richness to it, which is very interesting. And you can also add actual harmonics to the sawtooth. So that's good, and you can obviously mix those together. Get some. So that's very effectively, that's rather nice. I think I mentioned the Dynasynth is the best of the synths in the SY-1000 by quite a large margin. And I'll show you how bad the oscillator synth is in a minute. So it's good to have the extra option on there. The other one I like is the Super Saw. Now the Super Saw is like lots of other sawtooths with extra things added on, extra saws added on, a bit like harmonics. Which is huge sound, I love it. Breaks down a bit at the top, but where the Super Saw really shines is if you drop the pitch down an octave, and if you add this into a mix of other synth effects, it's huge. So that is brilliant. Add that to almost anything else and it just adds so much to it. So I'm a big fan of the Super Saw on the new synth. You can take it down 2 octaves. It gets a bit thick, but it's still quite... Don't want a lot of that. So yeah, great for making enormous noises. That's a great thing. That's one of my favourite things. Those are basically the 2 extra things you get in the Dynasynth with the pickup. So what we also get now is we get the other synths. Let's go through the other synths bit by bit. So we've got the oscillator synth, which is the only synth with a proper ADSR. So you've got attack, decay, sustain and release. See, that allows you to have notes that go a long time after you've actually damped them. See, the notes are damped there, but they're still ringing. That's really useful. And sadly, that's the only thing that allows you to do that. But at least you've got proper ADSR on this one. That's where this one really shines. So on the oscillator synth, let's take that down a bit. I do like having that. It's one of the things I use the oscillator synth for, is just adding a little bit of extra tail onto things. So the oscillator synth has a couple of modes. You've got single and dual oscillator modes, and you can sync the two and ring mod them if you like. I'm not a big fan of ring mods, but it's there. So I'll show you the single, the sawtooth. Now that takes a bit of triggering, so if I just draw the bow gently over the string, nothing happens. I have to dig it in a bit to make it trigger, and sometimes you get that weird hum on it. You get weird things happening like that. So it's a bit hit and miss. Yeah, so it doesn't always trigger nicely. So we've got a low velocity cut, which I think is probably best off. But even with that with zero, it still misses a lot of notes. So it's a bit annoying. Often it will trigger eventually, which makes it okay for using the release end, but it's a bit unreliable. It's obviously designed to work with guitars, obviously, that have a lot more attack on the note. It's similar to what I said on the MIDI video, where the algorithms that look for pitch are looking for an attack, because that just makes their job a lot easier. If you've got a note that's almost fading in, by computer terms at least, in over milliseconds, it's really hard to grab the pitch out of it reliably. So often they just don't seem to bother. So yeah, the oscillator is a bit of a damp squib, to be honest. It's got different hold modes, so if I leave that 0, chromatic. It's better, but of course you can't slide. So, and he doesn't really do the vibrato. So, yeah. If I turn chromatic off and put it onto mono. So that's in polyphonic mode. In monophonic mode, it's a little better. So, and if you're playing violin, monophonic is probably not that big a deal, particularly if the other synths will trigger on the poly. So yeah, it's not brilliant, to be fair. It's slightly better than the MIDI I showed you on the previous video, but it's not great. I could show you the other oscillators, but it doesn't seem to be a lot of point. Just wasting your time and mine, really. Yeah, it's a shame, because with an ADSR it would be really useful to be able to shape sounds better, but it's just a bit shit. Other thing we have poly effects, and the poly effects are quite fun. So we've got a few poly effects. The first one that comes to mind is the distortion. And I like the distortion for a couple of reasons. One is it very clean. But as with the guitar distortion, if you do two notes at once, you don't get that horrible growling noise, which is great for metal and stuff like that, but sometimes you don't want it. And this, with double stops, just a nice clean distortion. It feels a bit weird when you first do it because you're sort of used to that interference between the notes, particularly on sort of non-harmonic things like 6 and thirds, yeah, non-Pythagorean things, I should say. But it's a really effective thing. If I turn the gain up a lot more. You can see the notes come through really clearly. You can actually hear the notes I'm playing rather than just being a big sort of mess of distortion, really. So yeah, I like the polyphonic distortion. It's good. There's one called Crystal, which does largely what you'd expect it to do. Little notes flying off. And that's quite nice. It's not brilliant on its own because it sounds a bit twee, but you add that into all sorts of other things, and I've got a bit of delay on there which helps. It's really effective. So yeah, another one that's really nice. Again, because it's polyphonic, it works really well with double stops. Rich Mod, never heard of him. Again, really nice. Add a bit of a couple more effects to that onto my reverb and delay, and you can use it on its own. It's really nice. These are so good. Slow pad. Beautiful. I'm a big fan of the poly effects on this. They work so well on violin. Probably almost better on violin than guitar, I think. Apart from touch wah. Touch wahs can be quite nice on violin because you can control them with the bow. You can go. But this doesn't seem to have the sensitivity of a nice touch wah effect box. Even with the sensitivity there turned up, I've turned this up to full. You can hear it. It's not the nice quack you'd get. To be honest, touch wahs always would be one of those effects that I think, oh, that's really nice, I should use it. And I actually almost never have. I think I used it once. And even then, I don't think it actually ended up in the piece. So, yeah, slightly disappointing, that one, to considering all the rest of them are so good. Maybe it just needs more attack. Because it quacks nicely on pits. But, yeah, the others are really good. The other poly effects are very nice. So, yeah, one slightly dubious one, I think, is I can cope with that. GR300, let's have a look at this. Is presumably an emulation of the other Roland GR300 guitar synth. Trumpety sound there on the VCO version. VCO. You've got a distorted version, which is quite a soft sort of distortion, which is not bad. I turn the versions up a bit on there. Yeah, that gives you a nice sort of quack resonance. Quack, and you can combine the two. Just give you a bit more body, which is quite nice. Pretty good. One of the problems with the GR300 is doesn't work very well on high. Breaks up completely on a really high note. So anything above that G, really. A's not too bad. Flat. That B is pretty. So at first I put this down as well. It's used, you know, guitars don't generally go that high, but if you think about it, I mean that's only sort of, you know, that's what 15, 16 fret on a guitar. It's well below, you know, guitars have 22, 24 frets on them. So I don't know why it doesn't work on a violin. There must be something to do with the harmonics you get from the instrument. So yeah, if you're going to use the GR300, be aware that that is a limitation. It might not go as high as you'd like. Vio guitar. Da -da -da. So these are the sort of vintage emulations of the other guitars. This is supposed to be a classic Strat. Which I suppose it's more like you would get out of a Strat. Nice sounds. I like them. And the different things. So there's a modified Strat, Telecaster, Les Paul. So Les Paul would be a thicker sound, I imagine. Yeah, I think these are quite nice. Bear in mind, when you can pick up there's a different pickup there, so it's slightly thinner thin for a neck pickup, and there's a few different things there. I won't show you all of these. This bright humbucker, wide range humbucker, lipstick pickups, Rickenbacker. Can't remember what the L4 is. 335 and a Gibson 335 P9. So they're all sort of guitar emulation type things. But you've got extra things, so I've got the pitch set up there, so turn the pitch shift down on them. They've all got filters and overtones, and you can add things to them, so you can do. So they're quite versatile. I'll turn the octave down. Yeah, they're sort of lifters guitar emulations, but there's a lot more going on there. They've got the filters and the overtones. Lots of nice things you can do with their sounds. So they're worth playing with. The differences between them are quite subtle, but it's worth exploring, I think. So from the Vio guitar emulations, we'll go on to the real guitar emulations, and this is what surprised me, is how useful these are. So we've got electric guitar, and again we've got the guitar emulations, so classic Strat, modified Strat, Telecaster, Les Paul, P90 bass, 335, L4, whatever that is, Rickenbacker, lipstick things, wide ranging, single coil, bright humbucker, fretless, and they all have slightly different sounds. So you think, oh, guitar emulation, won't use that on a violin, but it's nice just for different textures. You mix that in with normal violin sound. So the differences are quite. So I think they're worth exploring because there's quite a lot of potential and doing different things, playing with the different pickup combinations, because it emulates the neck pickups, bridge pickups, and middle pickups if you've got one, and then combinations. So I won't go through all of those things now, but I think they're definitely worth playing with. It's the sort of thing you maybe wouldn't use on its own, because it's not that much different, but it's enough different, I think, to add a little bit extra colour. So the other two guitar emulations you've got are an acoustic guitar, which is quite fun. Not so much use it is, particularly the again, it's other texture you can play with the it's more fun with pits. It makes a lot more sense. And there's also electric bass, which doesn't seem quite as stable as the electric guitar, I think. So yeah, it's probably quite usable actually. Sitar is fun, isn't it? I forgot to look at that. That's quite nice. Sitar's quite nice. With all of the effects of a common set, which is just the level and how much you can mix the normal effect and how much you can do affect the strings. There's a noise suppressor there, and there's a generalized EQ. The generalized EQ is good for just saving yourself an EQ block in the effects, that's all, which I think I mentioned in the other video. So the other thing you can see in here is Alt Tune. Which is great for you for doing guitar, because you've got open D tunings, open E tunings, which is great for doing slide, drop Ds, and all these things here. I find them less useful on a violin. I think the major use for them on a violin is to use the like octave up and octave down. So they're quite good, and they do octave up. And you can do fifths, obviously, and retune them. Because this is designed for guitar, you can retune all the strings to anything you like. So you can tune the violin up in fourths, you could do Bieber-like tunings, really weird tunings with the strings in a different order. You can have the high note, the ones making low notes. And these are great on guitars. But I don't know about you, I find them really confusing on a violin. Octaves are fine, fifths borderline, but anything more fancy than that, because you've got the vibration under your chin, if the note that's coming out is considerably different to what you're playing, I find it just freaks me out, and I lose concentration. You might be better at that than me. You know, you might be able to use that feature to play the entire Bieber Rosary sonatas with a single violin in one step. You know, if you're good, then please do that, and please post it on YouTube, because I would love to see that. But that's a bit beyond me. Yeah, but so yeah, the tuning's not useful on the violin, I don't think. One thing that is useful is the 12-string guitar emulation, which is part of the tuning. So if I put this back to normal, and we go over here, we've got 12-string. And these are quite fun, because these are all the extra harmonics on your 12-string. So I love those. There's a bit of extra resonance on them. I think they're really nice. Those are definitely worth playing with. And you can change the relative tuning. So on a 12-string guitar, you've got octaves on the bottom 3 strings, or on the bottom 4 strings, I forget. And the top 2 strings are just duplicates. But using this system, you can make those octaves as well, either up or down, or go really wild with them. There's a lot of really exciting things you can do with that 12-string tuning. It's a bit like having a pitch shifter, but it just seems to work a bit better than a pitch shifter. I think partly because it's doing it string by string. So yeah, I play with those. They're brilliant. So this is where you change the tuning here. You can see here. And you do fine tunings and add extra delays to them and all sorts. So there's a lot of potential for making really lovely, interesting sounds. The this violin+SY-1000 doesn't do any samples at all. So if you want your violin to sound like a piano, get a GR55. GR55 is a sampler-based synthesizer as well as bits of synths. Not as many synth options as this, but it does have some, and it also has the samples. I'm not that interested in making the violin sound like other instruments, so I went for the SY-1000. It's got more synth options in it, and that's, for me, that's more flexibility, because I'm sort of using it as an effects pedal really, rather than using it to generate other sounds. If I want a piano sound, I will go over to the piano and play the piano. You know, there's a MIDI output on there which is borderline useless, as you will have seen. Yeah, up there, wherever it is, I'll put a link to that. I always get the hang of this YouTuber stuff. I don't know where stuff goes. Yeah, so the MIDI output is borderline useless, but it's there. So you need to set the thing up. Now, the setting up is a bit strange because it's designed for guitars. So if we go into GK setting, and I've got one here for the Cantini, you take the pickup type, which is recommended to be GK2A. Don't know why, but it is. Now the scale length only goes down to 500mm, which is really big for a violin. The violin's about 300, I think, 350, something like that. I haven't measured it. So I just have to set that to the minimum and hope for the best. These are fine. The other thing here I've had to set to minimum is distance. This is distance between the pickup and the bridge. So if you're installing a GT3 pickup on a guitar, there is always a gap between the pickup and the bridge, and that's what you put in here. But the gap between the pickup and the bridge is about 5mm. But these only go down to 10, so I've had to put those at 10. And the other thing to do is set the relative sensitivities of the various strings, and I've set sensitivity 6 off because there's only 5 strings. It's mentioned in the SY-1000 manual. It's not mentioned at all when you get the Cantini how you do it. So you just when you order a Cantini, you literally just get a violin. You don't get a bow, you don't get a case, you don't get a manual. It's just a violin in a box. I've mulled over whether the approximations are contributing to the MIDI tracking issues. I'm not convinced they are, to be fair. I think they're probably not helping, but I think they're more fundamental to the way violins actually sound and work. So there's that. So let's hear some sounds. No, I don't like that one. The dynamic synth uses the sequencer, of course. Organ's quite fun. So that's it, Cantini plus SY-1000. Very powerful combination, apart from the oscillator synth, which really doesn't behave very well at all, which is a shame. I think the other effects are really nice. There's a lot of good things you can do with there. You can build up some really big sounds, really nice sounds. And yeah, I'm looking forward to playing with it and doing a bit more with it. So that's it for this video. Hope you've enjoyed it, and see you again in the next one. Bye bye.